Hello everyone, welcome to today's Fpwebinar, Manage SharePoint on Azure. I'm Bill Newton, one of the marketing associates here at Fpweb.net, and with us today is Joe Bohac, Director of Customer Experience. Joe, thanks for joining us.
As always, thanks for having me.
Before we dive in, I wanted to go over a couple quick things. Submit questions at any time. We'll answer as many as we can at the end, but go ahead and queue those up for us so we can dive right into those questions as soon as Joe finishes his presentation. And also, we will be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card at the end of the presentation to one lucky participant.
All right, and I know we got the election season coming up, so I know we wanted to do a little voting.
Yes, let's vote. The first poll I would like to put up is yes. Who do you like in the World Series? Chicago and Cleveland start tonight, so I wanted to get an idea from our audience.
Okay.
And it looks like the Cubby fans are coming out strong.
Holy cow, look at that. Go Cubs.
79, 76, 70,
74% for Cubs, 26 for the Indians.
Okay, good to know.
I think we got one more question.
Yeah, a little more.
A little bit more on topic. Let's try that other question.
Are you on Azure now? And the answers there would either be yes or no, but I'm hoping that if it's a no, you're thinking about it, and that's why you're here. And that's interesting because we're at 70%, 71% no, but thinking about it. Yeah, it's 70-30. Okay, thanks everyone for giving us a little more detail on today's audience.
All right.
Joe, my screen's not showing.
Oh,
there it goes. If can you tell us a little bit more about why having SharePoint hosted in the cloud, such as Microsoft Azure, would make your operation more efficient?
Sure. Ease of use, knowing that you're going to have a web-based server out there on the cloud, and you're going to spin it up. It's a decent price. You're going to have a server you can do anything you want with. And in that case, you can actually load in your SharePoint environment to it. So pretty neat. The other bigger thing that always comes to mind for me is the offload of the infrastructure management costs, and just the idea overall that you're going to have to deal with your servers and your routers and your switches and all the cabling and firewalls and managing all of that. Also knowing that as soon as you buy that equipment, that there's a good chance that there's something better that's going to come out next week or next month. And you're dealing with your warranties, and you're dealing with servicing all of that hardware. The great thing about going into the cloud, going to Azure, is that you're actually going to offload all of that capital expense, if you will, into the cloud. So you don't have to worry about that. It's a wonderful thing to know. It's a wonderful relief, right? Also, that opens up that capital expense to be an operating expense, right? So if your budget now has an open window in it, there's opportunity there. So that's two big reasons on why you would want to jump over to being off on-prem and get into the cloud.
That makes a lot of sense to me as I'm thinking about kind of the unknown expenses of buying that equipment. You know, and you see that picture there of the stack in the closet, and so you may have the latest and greatest, but how long will it be the latest and greatest? Whereas if you go to the cloud, it's always the latest and greatest because it's their infrastructure. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And now you have just a monthly set expense of renting that space, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So what is one of the best things that you can do with that money that you save?
So you're in the cloud now. So now what, right? So that's a good question. So you can actually reinvest those savings on your infrastructure back into actually helping on the resources side, the human resources side.
Okay.
So you start thinking about offloading all of those responsibilities that are hampering your SharePoint admin. You can actually utilize another MSP or managed service provider to help you with day-to-day operations so that you can innovate so that your SharePoint admin or SharePoint admins can actually move the company forward.
That makes a lot of sense as well, because you're saying that there's not a lot of support included with your SharePoint experience on Azure.
No, you'd actually have to find, some managed service provider to assist you there, definitely.
Okay, so that's a good clarification. So,
Mhm.
so we're looking at, does your SharePoint admin or admins, like you said, need support? Does your SQL, DBA need support? Does your SharePoint developer need support?
Mhm.
Let's drill down into
Sure.
what kind of support a SharePoint admin typically needs. What kind of support would
Sure.
help?
So, the SharePoint admin's acting as the help desk for your company, right?
Okay.
As far as taking care of your end users. So they're coming up with tutorials to help people get through things. Another thing that's happening is even though your infrastructure is over in the cloud now, you are usually typically responsible for your own patching, right? So keeping your software up to date server-wise or SharePoint, cumulative packages, hotfixes, anything of that nature. So you're actually having to take over that responsibility too. And then on here, we see backups and restores. Those go, that refers to your data, which is the core of everything that we're doing, right? The whole reason you would use a collaborative tool like SharePoint is mainly to store and house your data and be able to manipulate it into viable information, right? That's actually going to help your company. So you need to be very close to the chest on where you're keeping that data. We'll talk more about that as we go, but you always want to make sure you have backup of all your information. Break fix, obviously, your admin's going to be taking care of that kind of stuff, and new user training or user adoption, that's a big thing. Migrations, upgrades, architecture, projects, all of that's actually something that's sitting on the shoulders of your admin. And conversely, you could use a managed service provider to actually allow your admin to take care of day-to-day operations and hand over the projects that we talk about so often that can slow down your admin from getting things done per se in a work day, work week, work month, right? So you can actually use a managed service provider to handle the big projects, the big boulders that are in the road, while your SharePoint admin takes care of day-to-day operations. Just depends on how you want to manage it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so either way that you look at that, you could see where that would be quite helpful to have that support team, supplemented by a managed service provider.
Right, and a managed service provider 24/7. You're not dealing with one person, you're dealing with a team of people who are going to be there around the clock to help you. So that's a big plus too.
Okay.
So they'll work with your schedule.
Gotcha. All right. Well, the next slide I want to show you is SQL support. Yeah. So when you're talking about providing support to your database administrator, right?
Mm-hmm.
What all can be unloaded from their plate that a managed service provider can assist with there?
Oh, we got a list here. It's a good start. Just performance tuning, making sure that you're optimizing your databases, that you have them broke out into manageable database sizes, LUNs, everything that's going on there, so you're not causing some problems down the road with how you're adminning your database management. As far as monitoring, that's another thing too. Of a DBA needs to be watching over. You get a managed service provider who has monitoring tools in place already that they can apply to your environment. They can actually help you forecast what's going to happen before it happens, which is a big deal, right? You want to be proactive, not reactive, especially in an environment where we're talking about your mission critical data. You don't want to be in a position where, like, how did we get here? We'd rather be looking at it like this is coming, right? And that's a big deal to me, and I know to many people, right? Clustering, making sure your cluster is healthy and failover are being tested, and making sure that if you're going to fail from one node to the other, it's as seamless as it possibly can be. Also, replication of your data. That's a big deal. Talked about it before about backing up your data. What about replication? Maybe you have it going concurrently somewhere else in real time, just in case there's some sort of a situation where you need to go to a warm failover or something like that. We'll talk about that in a bit, but that's a big deal.
Yeah, and when you talk about the big deal of backing up your database, I mean, that has more implications than just SharePoint, right? Because SharePoint runs on SQL.
Right. Many of the Microsoft products are using SQL Server to leverage their data, so it's definitely going to help in the stack in general.
Sounds like a key piece of support there. So what about making this a little more custom fit for your SharePoint needs? What about development support? What does that need?
Oh, it's very, very prevalent, especially in the SharePoint environment, to have somebody writing custom code for you that's actually going to help you better manage your data and workflows that you're dealing with at your business. Because at the end of the day, SharePoint is a massive tool, but it's a tool, right? So it's there to help you innovate and grow your business. Getting bogged down in making it your business can actually stop you from selling what you're actually trying to sell, right?
That's a good point.
And in custom web parts, there's a lot of companies out there that come out with some pretty cool inventions, if you will, to help you better manage your SharePoint. But you do need people that are going to be able to help you actually get those implemented, installed, and running and configured properly. So that's where your development team, comes into play. Branding your entire site, just to make sure there's many reasons to do all kinds of fun stuff with your site, but branding, that's something that's going to fall into the development side of the house. Consulting and authentication, all the things that you see here on this list about encryption and governance and everything else. You're talking security stuff that you can actually help yourself better by customizing your way to access your data.
Okay. Okay. So we've covered how to streamline your operation, or how to simplify your infrastructure, how to streamline your SharePoint application on that infrastructure. What I want to ask you about now is how to protect your data. You've sort of alluded to this throughout the slide so far in terms of backup.
Sure.
What kind of backup plan should you have when you're talking about SharePoint?
Well, first, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and talk about data loss itself.
Okay.
We did some research on this and realizing that there's five major causes, if you will, for data loss, right? So the number one being hardware malfunction. So especially if you're not in the cloud and you're dealing on-prem, 44% of outages and data loss are going to come from hardware malfunctions. So that's a pretty big number. 32 is us. 32% of all data loss and disasters come from human error. So anybody out there that's Six Sigma or ever studied that whole ideology that if we can take the humans out of the process and automate it as much as possible, we're actually going to reduce risk greatly, right? So that's pretty interesting to know. Coming in third there, obviously we see software corruption, which is sometimes inevitable just by things going wrong within the application layer, or the OS goes bad for whatever reason. You'll have those problems. And then 7% is viruses and malware attacks, which unfortunately is a number that 7 this year, but could be 14 next year, or in the next 18 months. It's a very kind of a scary thought, right? Yeah. That number is growing exponentially, week over week, month over month. Malware is a very big deal, and we'll talk a little bit about retention because of the nature of some of this malware and ransomware that we're seeing today.
Okay.
Out there in the industry, or out there in multiple environments, I should say. And then the funny thing here is that when I think disaster recovery, and I know I've talked to you about this, Bill, before, the first thing that comes to mind is a tornado or something.
Exactly. That's my definition of disaster.
The disaster recovery seems to be that, but that's only 3% of all the times that you've ever lost anything.
It's pretty small slice.
It's a very small slice. So it's not actually natural disasters that cause these problems. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to base the foundation on that to understand the importance of getting good backups, because those issues that are out there, those big ones, are right in front of us. So we need to be very diligent about what we're doing with our data. So, if you want to back it up to your on-prem environment, do you want to back it up in the cloud? Do you want to back it up in managed service provider? You have all these different versions of SharePoint that are running the whole Microsoft stack, personal files, whatever it is, whatever you're trying to save, whatever is mission critical. You need to find a place to put that information or that data, so you can retrieve it if there is a problem that comes up. Azure, I know you can actually buy more space and actually do it there if you'd want, but that's an option. Here at Fpweb.net, we actually do backups for customers that are on-prem or in other clouds, or even obviously on our own cloud, but our own private cloud. But this is another option. And then just actually having a managed service provider assist you with backing up back to your own premises, your own campus, wherever you want to hold on to that information or that data. So that's another option. So there's multiple ways you can do it. It's just a necessity to ensure that you're backing up your data.
Okay. But what about how often should you back up? How do you decide that?
That can vary from what you're trying to accomplish. But for me, I believe that you should be doing 30-day retention on your disaster recovery, your file system, your SQL, your item level, everything. You should at least have a once a week running a 30-day retention of your entire environment. And I say that because we're finding that now with ransomware, at least right now in this iteration or this generation of ransomware being disseminated across farms, what we see is 14 days where the actual ransomware has been coded in a way that it does not actually enable itself for 14 or 15 days, because most companies typically only do 14-day retention. So knowing that, it knows you don't have a recourse now that you've waited 14 days or you only had the 14-day retention. Day 15 comes, or even day 20 comes, and the ransomware activates, and it'll lock up your whole system. I know we did a webinar on that recently with Dan Pinkley, I believe.
That's right, yeah.
Infrastructure team.
And I'll do a small plug for our archives of our previous webinars are available on our YouTube channel, as well as Fpweb.net/webinars. And yeah, the cybersecurity one definitely covered a lot of details on ransomware. But, yeah.
Right. And a big thing about why you want to do the backups too, and I kind of got a little bit off point there for that, I apologize. One of the big things that you're trying to do is to have that backup in place so that you can restore, right? So you can actually go back and put things back. So if this ransomware threat does hit on day 15, you have a disaster recovery backup of everything that you can actually put yourself back prior to. Obviously, you want to scan and make sure that your forensics team looks at everything that's going on in those old backups and find the one that's clean and put you back to that. The restores are just as important as the backups, and that's going to help you with aggressive SLAs with your own customers, if they need to be up 24 hours a day, or if they need to be a certain amount of availability, that if disaster does strike, that you can quickly move to restore your data. So it's a big deal.
Okay. So just to recap then, so if you're looking to simplify your infrastructure, you can accomplish that by moving off premises and into the cloud. And if you're looking to streamline your SharePoint application, you can get managed support.
Absolutely.
And if you need to get backup, which sounds like it's a necessity more than an option.
Correct.
Then you also need to seek that out, because it does not come with your experience on Azure.
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, you need to cover that. Definitely.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think I got it. Fpweb.net has managed SharePoint backups for over 500,000 SharePoint sites since 1999, freeing up our customers to innovate, focus, and have more time for what really matters. You can find out more about our support for SharePoint on Azure or anywhere else at Fpweb.net/admin-support, or you can contact us at sales@Fpweb.net or give us a call at 866-780-4678. Just ask to order SharePoint on Azure with 24/7 support from Fpweb.net.
Very good.
You want to dive into some questions?
Sure.
All right.
Let's see what we got going on.
Fantastic. Looks like we've got one, Joe, that you could probably know. It says, "Are you trying to take my job?"
No, actually, that's not the point of being a managed service provider, to be honest with you. And I know that apprehension does come up in conversation. Actually, our idea behind being a managed service provider is to be a trusted assistant or a trusted colleague to your admin or your DBA or your developers or even your security team. Is to be an extra set of hands or extra set of multiple hands to help you take care of everything that's in front of you so you can move your company forward. As they say, we're here to take the rocks out of your backpack. So we can either handle working your day-to-day information or management, or take on those big projects so that you can focus on day-to-day operations. If there's something that's going on that is going to take many, many hours to get through, we're more than happy to jump in and be that assistant.
That's a great way of explaining that, yeah, and a good question. There's one here that says, "How much does this cost?" I think that's one I can take and
Sure.
and try and explain this. There's all kinds of options for buying SharePoint on Azure, and one of the ways to get SharePoint on Azure is to call Fpweb.net, and we can get you our partner discount with Microsoft. Now, if you're talking about expert USA-based 24/7 SharePoint support, Fpweb.net can handle that, and we break down that support that we call absolute support into four levels, I should say, and we name those levels after the roles in which they support. So admin, database, development, and security. The admin plan is $3,495 a month. Now you look at that cost compared to the payroll of a full-time employee, say a systems admin, and our plan is 44% cheaper than the payroll, or the average U.S. payroll, according to salary.com, for a systems admin. Now you look at the database plan, it's $4,995 a month. That not only includes database support, but it also includes the admin support. So you compare that to the full-time salaries of both a DBA and a systems admin, and you're saving 63% combined savings. Now the development plan is $7,495 a month. That also includes, in addition to development support, database support, and admin support. And you compare that to the full-time salaries of a software developer, a DBA, and a systems admin, and it's a combined savings of 66%. And last but not least, our security plan is $9,995 a month. It includes security support, development support, database support, and admin support. You get it all. And you compare that to the salaries, according to salary.com, U.S. national average salaries for a security analyst, software developer, a DBA, and a systems admin. And the combined savings are 68%, and we're not even including benefits or the training time.
Right.
Or the onboarding, or the fear of losing that employee once you've got them trained and onboarded.
That is correct.
Right. Slide this mouse over to you while I tee up. Looks like there is a question about migrations. Because we did, yeah, that's right. Are they included with this support? Joe, you touched on that as part of the admin plan, and as I just explained, you get the admin support with all four of the Fpweb.net absolute support levels. So is a migration included?
Yes, actually, that would be something that we can do for you. As long as you're signing on with our admin services here, we can actually get you to 2016. We've done thousands of migrations over the years. We've told people we've jumped from 2 MOS environments to 2013. So we definitely know and utilize the functionality and the tools in place that we have to get you to a seamless transition from the older versions of SharePoint that you might be on to the latest and greatest. So it's something we definitely can do. And it's included. So that's pretty good.
Can you see those questions okay? Or you want me to pull them up here?
Take a look here. Just looking through. We do see one here about how do you back up the data that resides only in the cloud. Basically, in that case, you're going to have SharePoint servers. You're going to have servers that are out on the Azure cloud, and you'll have access to your data. So we'll work with you to get you into routine or utilize some software that's going to, obviously a third-party software that's going to pull that data off the cloud and actually save it to wherever you want to save it, somewhere else in the cloud, or if you want to save it back to here at Fpweb.net, or help you come up with some architecture plans to get you on-premises hardware to kind of give you an idea of the cost that would go into that. You would need obviously a SAN in a landing zone for that data. So definitely we work with our architects to design those solutions specifically for your environment. So it's doable, definitely. It's just a matter of how do we want to do it. So that was one of the questions I saw here.
Yeah, there's one here. I like this one. 24/7 support ? Will the call take a message and get back to you?
That's a good question. That's a fun one. So basically today we do have 24-hour support. So you will actually be talking with usually one of our level 1 techs. Will definitely be the one that you'll be working with directly. You'll work with them, and then if it needs to be escalated, obviously we have teams all around us that will actually get that handed over to the right teams immediately. So not really take a message and call you back kind of thing. It would be more you're going to call in or you're going to submit a ticket through the ticketing portal, and you're going to get somebody within 6 minutes on the portal or a live person if you call in. So it's good.
Very good.
I think we're running right down to the bottom of the hour here.
That flew by. Had a blast.
Yes, it did.
Appreciate you stopping in.
Yes, sir.
For today's FP webinar. Once again, visit Fpweb.net/admin-support for more information about managed SharePoint on Azure. I would like to invite everyone to meet us at the next FP webinar. It's about Microsoft Premier Support alternatives. And whether the Microsoft Premier Support services is a costly issue for you, we can delve into some of the cost alternatives at 1:00 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, November 15th. I will be sending out an email to everyone with a link to this recording as well as a link to register for that next FP webinar. And it's time to pick a winner. Joe, you want to pull one out of the hat there?
Sure. Stan Tracy.
Stan Tracy, congratulations. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Enjoy the World Series tonight.
Yes. Go Cubs, apparently.
Apparently with this